In the last video, I talked to you about the Canon C300III and why it is my favorite camera of all times, even after using it for the last 8 months or so. And part of the reason is because I finally found the perfect handheld rig for it, and that is the best balanced and most versatile rig that I have ever used on any kind of camera. And in this video, I will walk you through why I use some parts, how I use them, and just walk you through my overall rig. More on that after the intro. My name's Damien Cooper and welcome to Monkey Pixel. So before we start, what kind of rig setup was I looking for in the first place? I like shooting handheld a lot, but sometimes I also like to put it onto a gimbal. So one of the criteria was that it's really comfortable shooting handheld, but that I could also really easily turn it into a really small stripped down version and put it onto a gimbal. And with my build, I think I really accomplished this very well. Another big factor of my rig build was that it's still manageable in weight and size, and I didn't really want to build a huge shoulder mount rig that I need an easy rig for to carry it around anywhere, but that I can still comfortably shoot handheld with. But the last criteria was that it still needs to be very versatile because I shoot a lot of different content, from really long documentary shoots to corporate interviews, but also shoot a lot of dynamic content for this YouTube channel or for other athletes and music videos. I shoot a lot of night, but also in bright daylight, at sunset, in sunrise, and I also sometimes need to set up an external director's monitor, so overall this needs to be very versatile and equipped for all kinds of different situations. So now, without further ado, let's actually start. Let's start at the heart piece and the top of my rig, and that is the external monitor. And as I've stated in various videos before, I don't like using the stock monitor because A, it's way too small and it isn't bright enough. As I said, I shoot a lot in sunset, sunrise and bright daylight situations, and when shooting handheld, I shoot in manual focus about 95% of the times. So I really like having an external monitor that is bright, it's really high quality and is also large enough for me to judge focus and exposure. And my weapon of choice here is the OCG7, and that is by far my favorite external monitor for the Canon C300III. I did a full review on this, but I will quickly run you through the most important features for my Canon C300III. Number one, it's the brightest monitor that I have ever used. It features a 3000 nit brightness, and that is plenty enough to use it outside in any kind of weather condition. Number two, it has all the ports on the back, and that is not only really convenient because it's not dangling off the side, but it's also not blocking anything when attaching it to my rig, and I will talk about this a little later, like other monitors like the Fieldworld LUT7 for example, which blocks the DC in port on the bottom of the monitor when using a monitor mount from SmallRig for example. The monitor also comes with a D-tap to DC in cable, and that has a secure thread so you can mount it to your monitor, and that is what I do because I'm powering this monitor via my V-mount batteries. It's also of really high build quality, so overall this is my favorite monitor to use with the Canon C300III. The way I attach this monitor to my rig is via a SmallRig swivel mount, and the one that I've been using alongside all the other things that I'm using I will link down in the description below. But the one that I've been using is really cool because it features an array location pin as well as a 3/8" thread to mount to my top handle. So this way I can easily tilt my monitor back and forth for better viewing angles, but it's also really securely attached to my top handle. Speaking of the top handle, I had so many different top handles and I tried several ones until I found the one that combines everything that I'm looking for, and the one that I'm using is from SmallRig as well. So why this top handle over all the other top handles? Well, A, it's really comfortable to hold, but B, it also features a lot of different mounting options. It features a Natorail on the bottom of the top handle, which I attached to the camera via a 90mm low profile Natorail, also by SmallRig, and that fits perfectly and is also very secure, but I can also detach the entire grip easily with just a flick of my finger. On the front I have a mounting option for my SmallRig monitor mount, and on the top as well as on the back of the grip I have two cold shoes, and they come in really handy too. The top one I don't really use because it would be in the way of my monitor, but the back one I use whenever I want to set up a director's monitor or need a wireless transmission system for an SDI or HDMI out, and that is the perfect place for it. But now here comes the money part, and that is that it also features a 15mm rod mount, and this I use to attach my shotgun microphone. I can just attach a 15mm rod in the middle of the top handle, and on this rod I can attach several things, like a shock mount for my shotgun microphone, but I could actually use this to add some additional stuff that I'm currently not using. And during my research, a lot of the top handles I found have some of the features, but not all of them combined. But this one does. Since I was just speaking about it, let's talk about my wireless transmission system. And currently I'm using the Hollyland Mars S400. And they are a great tool because they are really solidly built, they're really easy to set up. They also feature a 5V in DC port, so I can power them also with my V-mount batteries. But I will talk about this in a second. And it's really of high quality, and I can easily attach it to my top handle and therefore just send the signal out via SDI or HDMI to connect to a director's monitor whenever I need that. So now let's talk about my audio solution, and that was the part that gave me the most headache in the process of building this perfect rig for my Canon C300III. For the life of me, I couldn't really find a good solution that is easy detachable but also doesn't require a full cage on my Canon C300III. But then I found a 15mm rod clamp shotgun microphone holder, and that way I can easily attach and detach my external microphone to the entire rig. The microphone I'm currently using is the Synco D1, and that is a microphone I already did a review about on this channel, and I can highly recommend it. It's fairly inexpensive and it has great audio quality, and this is the microphone I'm recording this video on right now. In addition to it, I use a Windshield by a company called Movo, and I found them on Amazon, and they do a really great job of eliminating outside wind noises. And as my side handle of choice, I use the original one by Canon, and that actually does a really good job, and you can detach it, and when using an extension cord, you can actually hook it up to a gimbal ring, for example, and control your camera even when shooting on a gimbal. So now let's talk about my battery solution, and I've been using BP A30 and A60 batteries for the longest time, but it really wasn't a satisfactory solution for several reasons. Number one, the battery life just isn't really sufficient. On the BP A30 you get about 30 to 40 minutes depending on the situation you shoot in, and that really isn't enough for a lot of my shoots. The BP A60 gives you a lot more battery runtime, but it's really uncomfortable to shoot with. When shooting handheld and pressing the camera to your body, you only have a really small point of contact, and it also really wobbles around the slot, so it actually makes for less stable shots than when having the entire camera being able to press to your body with a V-mount battery or with a BP A30. Another thing about the original Canon batteries is that you can only power your camera and not external accessories like my HDMI transmitters or my external monitor. So here I found a solution by a company called Full Frame Camera, and that is a really cool part because it's basically nothing but a V-mount battery plate, and it attaches directly to the back of your camera body, and it really fits nicely, and it actually looks like it's originally designed by Canon. The battery plate itself comes with a D-tap out, and that is pretty convenient because now I can power my external monitor with it and don't have to attach it to the V-mount battery itself and have to unplug it every time I swap batteries. Another really cool thing about this plate is that it sits on top of the original battery department, so I can still use my original batteries if I want to, and this way I can, for example, hot swap my V-mount batteries and the camera still keeps recording. Of course, the external monitor shuts off for the duration of my V-mount battery not being connected, but I wouldn't really miss any shots when having the camera for a long interview or something on my tripod, and that is really cool and convenient too. It also makes it so much easier to go from handheld to gimbal because I don't need to unscrew this thing from the back of my camera, and I can just leave it on there, and it even fits on the DJI RS2 with the BP A30 battery, and it's not in the way of the gimbal. But now let's talk V V-mount batteries. The only V-mount batteries that I use with my Canon C300III are Bebop batteries, and that is a German brand that produces really high quality V-mount batteries. And they also have an entire lineup of micro batteries. And these are actually fairly small for the power punch they pack. My favorite by far is the V150, and that is a 150 watt-hour battery that I use with the Canon C300 most of the times. I recently used this on a really long documentary shoot, and I really wanted to test how long this V-mount battery can power my entire setup. So I had it hooked up to my external monitor, and it was set to about 3 out of 10 of brightness because I was shooting indoors, and the camera was running for 5 hours the entire time. And during these 5 hours I recorded about 90 to 100 minutes, so that is how much you get out of one V-mount 150 watt-hour battery from Bebop. And I have different kind of sizes and capacities when it comes to my Bebop batteries, all the way from 98 watts to traveling on a plane to 200 watts when I have it stationary on a tripod or when using it for my external light sources. But my absolute favorite when shooting handheld with the Canon C300 is the V150 micro battery, because it has the perfect size. And even when using my Mars 400 with the antennas out, I can still firmly press it to my body, and I don't have to worry about the antennas being broken. And overall I feel like this is the right distance from chest to having my arms tucked in, and I just feel comfortable shooting with the V150 battery. So whenever I have my V-mount batteries attached to the camera and it's being plugged into the DC in port, my camera doesn't show me any minutes left as it would do with the original battery. It shows me a voltage right on my screen. And when I have a full battery, it shows me around 16.1 volt, and by the time this slowly goes down, all the way down to 12 volts. And the cool thing is, when you hit that 12 volt, it basically behaves the same as if you had an original Canon battery inside and it runs out of battery power. The 12 volt sign starts being displayed in red, and all the indicators on the camera also starts flashing in red, like they would do when you run out of your original battery, so you have plenty of time to swap out your battery and you can't really miss it. And the camera favors the V-mount batteries first, and it drains them completely, and then it switches to the internal Canon battery. The batteries itself also feature a 5 volt USB out, and that one I use to power my Hollyland Mars 400 Pros, so they don't need any external batteries either. It also features another twisted D-tap out, so when you wanna run 2 external monitors, one for yourself and one for a focus puller, you can also do that. And the last really neat feature of the Bebop batteries, if you press the button on the side twice, it actually starts a flashlight, so it's easier for you to find your mounting point when it's dark outside. So now let's come to my memory card solution. When it comes to memory cards, I only use Angelbird cards, and I have a 2 terabyte Angelbird card, which isn't even as expensive as you might have thought. It runs you about $1,200 I think, and for 2 terabytes that's actually pretty cheap, and I've had no problems with it, and it's so convenient to be able to just record and record and record. And whenever I haven't really done a backup of my footage and I've just transferred it to my SSD RAID, I like to have the peace of mind to just be able to keep it for a little longer on my card without having to erase my memory card. And that's pretty much it. That's my entire rig. And when I don't want to use it handheld and want to go to tripod or my DJI RS2, I use the new DJI RS2 baseplate by SmallRig, and that fits my Manfrotto 501 fluid head as well as the DJI RS2, so I basically just leave it on there at all times, and I can easily swap between my tripod as well as the DJI RS2. And as an honorable mention, if you were wondering, the lenses that I use the most on a Canon C300III is by far the Sigma 18-35 1.8, and I think this is an amazing lens. The autofocus capabilities aren't as great, but since I shoot about manual focus 95% of the times, it really doesn't matter, and the image quality is amazing out of this lens. And when I need to punch in way more, I basically mostly use my Canon 100mm 2.8 macro, and that's the lens that I use for most B-roll shots on this channel, but also for close-up shots of any kind of subjects when being out in the field. When I need more wide angle for certain shots, I use my Tokina 11-20mm 2.8, and that is a really nice wide angle lens that I use from time to time when 18mm just isn't enough. But that's it, that's everything I need for my Canon C300 Mark III. And the really cool thing is that most of the stuff is attached to the top handle, so with one flick of the finger I can actually take off the top handle, the external monitor, my wireless transmission, as well as the external shotgun microphone, and then easily go from handheld to gimbal setup. So if you have any more questions about this rig, don't hesitate and ask me in the comments down below. Make sure to subscribe to see more videos in the future. Hit that like button because it really helps the channel grow. Check out our stores for our custom LUTs, especially made for the Canon C300. Also, we have a lot new merch on our website if you want to support this channel. And at this point, I hope to see you on the next one.